Good morning everyone. I think we're getting close to the start. It's started 10:03, so just a couple of moments before we get on with the webinar. Just like to thank everyone who's attended. We have quite a variety of organisations that are listening in. We've got a number of accountants, legal, manufacturing, large and small organisations, so hopefully the information may be relevant to each and every one of you in a different way. Just a few more joining the session. Okay, so my name's Nigel Crockford. I'm a member of the CPIO business development team. We work very closely with the department called eSpider, where we are the IT security experts, IT consultants. We have a number of security experts within the organisation, and hopefully you and your account managers may be able to take advantage of the skills and services that we have available for you. Networking skills, design and architecting skills for security is very much a one size does not fit all. It is case by case. So please bear in mind what you see is fairly generic. However, it is an informational webinar, and hopefully you'll gain a few little golden nuggets from that. Those golden nuggets hopefully will be a few questions where we can pose to your account manager so we can get back to you with some feedback. Okay, so let's get on with the webinar. We must do a legal disclaimer. Clearly, we're not legal experts, and with the GDPR part of the discussions that we're going to have this morning, it is a legal requirement that you have mandatory things set in place and you have mandatory audits. Clearly, we're not registered for that, but we can offer and help you. Hopefully a great deal of advice in order to ensure that you do comply and you are following the regulations as laid down. So please just take a moment to read that and understand that we're not obviously a legal department giving legal advice. Okay, so as mentioned, my name is Nigel Crockford. I'm part of the business development here in the Watersdale Group. Watersdale Group covers quite a large number of industries with the different departments of the group that we've got, with the CPIO that you may be familiar with. There's the Watersdale Arden Group, and there's the Watersdale East specifically. And each of them have a great deal of strength to bring to the mix of security and GDPR that we'll get onto shortly. Okay, the security measures that we're talking about are, as I say, informational. It is important that everyone in the department, everyone in the team, everyone in the business realise that security is for everyone to adhere to. It's not the IT's department anymore. It hasn't been for some time now. What we are keen to ensure is that everybody is able to understand the risk and try to mitigate that risk as early and as soon as possible. The other big hitter that we're talking about, besides security, which is obviously quite an enormous topic on its own, but also we're talking about the General Data Protection Regulation for 2018. This is coming in May next year, and unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, we're going to have to comply. It's part of the legislation that will impact on practically most businesses across the UK and Europe and further beyond, and failure to comply can have serious implications. So the idea is for us to try and help you build a robust strategy, looking at what you've got and how we can possibly aid and advise in areas where you think you may have some weaknesses or vulnerabilities, or areas of just compliance to make sure you understand what the risks are, how it's going to affect you, and what you need to do and what you need to have in place in order for you to progress forward and prevent any problems for you and your business and the consequences that may occur from that. These are two big hitters, so please bear with us. We are just touching the surface of them, but hopefully you'll get to say a couple of golden nuggets from the presentation. Right, so thinking back, hello go to quite a number of people might think that, wow, all those years ago, back in 95, when Bill Gates decided to set up Windows 95, we all thought it was going to be a real big help to us, which clearly it was and has been. What we didn't realise then is just how easy and simple IT was. Going back, you can remember when you would say switch it off, switch it back on again. It probably still applies today, to be fair. But more importantly, we were into the learning curve. It was everyone was starting to understand where computers can aid, and the risks were low, but there were still risks out there. I remember a little while ago when I was setting up computers for home, where we'd have a Cygate firewall, a soft firewall. Didn't really understand what it was about, but we were told to put one on, so we put one on, and it hopefully would keep us protected, but not really understanding risk. Things were far simpler then, clearly, and we have moved on, but we just need to try and remember where we've come from to where we're trying to get to. So moving forward, obviously we're trying to get PCs on every desk. PC era was starting with Mr. Gates and IBM all those years ago, and basically where we're at now is the stage where we're moving on progressively from PC era into the internet era, when the internet started to take proper shape and the costs to access the internet came down. More and more search engines, Yahoo, trying to think of the other ones, but obviously Google started to come into the frame, and obviously we're all familiar with Google and some of the other areas where we can get access to information that we probably never would have had access previously. So the internet age brought us together with a lot more information that we can start to share, have networking, and become a bit more of a joined up and collaborative society. Then we move slowly into the cloud era, somewhere probably in the mid 2010, 2011, when cloud really started to hit the scene. What is cloud? Cloud is very straightforward, really. We don't have to complicate it. It's an area where you want to put your data. It could be stored locally in someone else's servers or your own servers, and literally it becomes a situation where it's just storage of another storage department that you have across your business. Okay, so the idea of cloud computing really is about consumption-based pricing from subscription payments, where you can have a monthly cost, a bit like gas, a bit like electricity. You switch it on and use it, you switch it on and pay for it. It's getting to that kind of stage where it becomes a commodity item. However, what we have to bear in mind with commodity items is we can't afford to let complacency get into the mix. Complacency breeds contempt, and basically this is where the weaknesses start to appear within organisations. So just touching on cloud, obviously we need to try and understand what this magical place of storage is, and there's nothing really complicated about it. To be fair, we don't want to make it complicated. We need to make sure that we understand what it is and how it can aid us. So basically, as I mentioned, there are a few different ways of storing it. Cloud is straightforward. It's storing your data and applications on servers, whether on your own premise, which would be a private cloud. So if you've got a server room in your building with some servers and some big connections for the internet, where you've got access to Google and other things we mentioned, that's your private cloud. So basically you have a cloud, but you can see it. If you put some applications into cloud, like your CRM or some of your sales activities or your applications, these may be third-party hosted, and these could be on their cloud, on their private network, but you're accessing it, so you're going through sharing their services and your own services, and it becomes a hybrid situation. So effectively we have a bit of a mix. Similarly with public cloud again is an area where it's fairly free and open and access, but there's not usually any charges to it. And then community, where people want to share and collaborate and keep the cost down and start to mingle and collaborate even greater. So cloud really, in a nutshell, it's storing your data and applications on servers, whether it's private, public, hybrid or community, or any combinations of. So, your IT environment. People often think that Windows 95, when we were looking back way back when, it was all very nice and easy, very simple. But as we've moved on, the perimeter-led environment, which you would have had, where you would have had simple access to the internet, moving forward into the internet era, you would have had firewalls, you would have had some sort of antivirus, and it would all be mitigated. You would try and do what you need to do to make sure you are safe. However, as we've moved on, clearly the important part is how these have changed and how we as a business have grown and how we touch different areas that we don't quite necessarily recognise or quite understand, because it's just grown, it's evolved, it's naturally moved into a situation where we have access to, believe it or not, this and probably a lot more than this. But you may touch on some all of them or any part or any mix of them. The important thing to remember is that we have ongoing sort of Internet of Things, which is where everything's being managed from software via phone or a smartphone. Email, we all know about email, we've been doing it for years. Bring your own device at the top there, BYOD, and then BYOD encourages mobile device management on the bottom left-hand corner. How these all interact and how these are touching each other, and each one of them is potential threat. And what we have to understand and recognise is that my simple Windows 95 environment has evolved and continues to evolve into something a little bit more complicated and a little bit more risky and a little bit more prone to where people or threats can get into the system, and we need to try and recognise those areas if we possibly can. So, numbers. The important thing here, I think, is what we're trying to recognise is reports are coming out left, right and centre, but we need to understand and digest the information. This one was done in April this year, 2017, cybersecurity breaches, and it did go quite a good spread, as you can see the details across the bottom of the page there. It tried to cover off most of the kind of businesses that we've got on the call today, which are the across the legal, the manufacturing, all sizes, large and small. It is quite a diverse report, which makes it a little bit more viable. So BYOD, bring your own device, where staff can personally use their own devices and what that can bring to the business and how that really aids the business. It gives you the opportunity anytime, anywhere access, empowering your workforce to be able to work from home. It's the life balance, it's a simple life-work balance. Reduce risks and costs potentially if we're looking at things correctly. Does it simplify IT? Possibly it does. It makes it easier if you've got access to your information, but there's a trade-off that we have to ensure that the IT department is ensuring security and compliance, whilst we're giving you, the end user, your own access to your own device safely and securely, and hopefully that information is being kept safe and secure. Going back to the cloud era, where that data sprawl could be locked off and stored somewhere that you're not aware of, if they have access to your information, to your data. Clearly, in this instance, where 45% of overall business users allow personally owned devices, smartphones, iPhones, iPads, tablets, we have to recognise that we want to give them the flexibility, but we also have to recognise they are potential threats. So when these BYOD users potentially are using and storing and accessing your data, or you as a business are allowing other parts of the business to store and put data away into the cloud, as mentioned, there's different variants, the public, private, hybrid and community, depending where it needs to go. Use of externally hosted web services has grown enormously. The left-hand number, where it's gone from 59, that's increased by 10% in a year. And if that goes at that pace, you can imagine that we're going to end up with quite a significant amount of stuff into the cloud, where basically, do we own it? Do we know where it is? How do we manage it? How do we stop data leakage protection? Who's in control of my data? How relevant and important it is to me as a business that if that data got lost, got compromised, it is important that we understand. Hackers don't stop. 24/7, 365, they're trying to get at your data. Do we think about it 24/7, 365? Probably not, because obviously we hope that the system's in place to try and prevent intrusions, but making sure our data is safe. However, if we're not sure where the data is, then we can't make it safe. The numbers are quite staggering, really, when you think about, since 2016, most organisations have had some security threat. When you consider that they're now putting senior positions as security officers, not necessarily as in public sector, which you've had for years, but in areas where literally you're taking organisations, mainstream organisations, and having dedicated security personnel. So when you can look at the numbers here, what we've got, and the 46% of small, 66% of medium, 68% of large enterprises have all seemed to have had attacks. Just coincidence, it tends to reflect those kinds of numbers there, where the expanse of externally hosted web services have increased proportionally. Now, there's no science in that. That is pure and simple me looking at numbers that happen to be relevant to the particular presentation. It just coincides that they do tend to mirror each other as the data is being shoved into the cloud and being sent into different areas of storage, Google Store, iCloud, or wherever that may be. It gives us the opportunity to ensure that we must try our very best to ensure that we have a handle on where our data is. So 74% of all businesses say that cybersecurity is a high priority. How many are really taking it seriously? Well, hopefully all of them are, but it depends to what level they understand and try to interpret what levels they need to be protected by. One size does not fit all, and having antivirus and firewalls really does help, but it's not the answer. We have to tend to look at it a little bit differently, a little bit more in depth. Trying to get an understanding of what cybercrime really is. We all understand, and we've heard the terrible things that have been taking shape with the NHS and other areas where the ransomware has been trying to infiltrate into organisations. It's been relentless, it will continue forever and a day, and someone will keep changing the actual scripting of these viruses to find other weak holes in other areas that haven't been patched, or security fixes that are not being recognised as yet. But I think the one on the right hand side, accidental attack, is often the most important one, which tends to be sometimes by accident, as mentioned, where people inadvertently lose data or send data out of the business that shouldn't have gone to someone else. We'll remember there was a disk with 27 million individuals' records on that went missing from one of the government departments in Newcastle, never been found, and those details have obviously gone slushing around into dirty hands and people using that to make it to their advantage and gain. So it could be accidental, it could be deliberate, and a lot of the intrusions and areas of risk are from your existing members of staff. And I think what we need to recognise and understand is that by looking at our own personnel first and be able to control and make sure we understand that we are allowing them where to go, where they need to go, without compromising or hindering their business, but also making sure that we have an understanding. It's not Big Brother, it's safety and security of my business and the livelihood of me and my colleagues. Indirect attacks, where the people are trying to groom, they're trying to get into knowing who you are, trying to get your bank accounts and trying to swoon you really, or just simply attacking you directly to try and get information from you. There's many ways that they're going to try and get the cyber stalking, identifying theft, phishing, which is obviously trying to get cash, or details to your access to your bank accounts. And info warfare, where they may be trying to nick intellectual property from you to try and take that to their advantage, or to try and make sure if you're in a competition that they're aware of what you've got in order for them to try and win business against you. So it's not necessarily just for gaining in some areas where it just want to just be clever. It could actually help close your business down if someone grabs your intellectual property. The direct attacks are probably the ones that we've been more familiar with recently, but they've been there for such a long time. Viruses, we've already mentioned earlier, we have firewalls, we have antivirus. Denial of service is when you get flooded with requests and your systems can't handle it, and basically it just shuts down, it just gets into a tizzy, and it stops your business from working. Now that could be hours, it could be days, it could be weeks. The important thing is it's going to stop your business if it gets through, and clearly that's what we're trying to avoid. Malware, it's one of those that we see, it just keeps popping up with all different dings and trying to direct you to where you didn't want to go. Just recently, a family friend of mine has bought tickets for Mrs. Brown's Boys, and they didn't know that they'd been hoodwinked on a different site, and they were sent to a site where they paid extortionate prices for tickets, really not realising it was fraud, and got there and the tickets weren't valid. Unfortunately, this is one of thousands and thousands and thousands of organisations and people that are doing this to us, and we just need to be diligent and vigilant about what we're trying to do. So it's keeping aware and making sure that we understand where these threats are potentially coming from and how we're looking after and guarding against these threats that are hitting us every single minute of the day, 24/7, 365. So I'll just give you a minute to read a couple of those lines. These are proper headlines out to the newspapers and wherever you want to see. It's important that we understand that there are consequences when attacks occur and when attacks hit us. It isn't just a question of, never mind, we'll just move on and see what happens. It can have massive consequences to businesses, to personnel and livelihoods. Going out of business through administration or losing your business for one thing, you can't help it, that's unfortunate. When someone hacks into your business and brings you down, could it have been prevented? Well, we hope it could be, and it's important that we try to do everything we can to stop these kind of things from taking shape. But just to recall the recent one, obviously in June, the Petya malware, where someone had taken the WannaCry, changed it slightly into something different, and then they sent it out as a different name, or they've got one they've used previously and changed it. It's ransomware, whichever way you want to look at it, and they're trying to just get money into bitcoins, so as they can just do what they want with your cash. And unfortunately, once they've encrypted your data and you can't decrypt it, you are in a nasty place. And if you haven't got the systems in place to bring that data back online in a reasonable space of time without too much hindrance on the business, you could be one of those that have just seen the business disappear down the drain. It is quite serious, and we can't emphasise enough just how serious it really is. So it's not just sort of ransomware. People do things that they think they're doing good. Edward Snowden stole a lot of those security details from American forces. 1.5 million secret records, 1.5 million records there. You can't imagine just how much that would be. But when you think about how we can got so much data, you can get there on a USB pen and walk out the door and no one would even know you've got it. And he can do what he wishes with that, as he has been doing. And obviously, whether it puts other people's lives at risk or business at risk, he's got that information, and if he wants to, he can do as he wishes with it. So once he's got it, and you haven't, I think that's what we have to realise. We want to try prevention is better than cure. So with all these threats coming in from every angle, from internal, external, and ones that build themselves up over a period of time, and then the last one gets into the system and basically will open up and compile itself and open up within your business and start shutting down areas and encrypting business parts of the business. It's important that we recognise that most organisations have had a cyber breach. So looking at the numbers again from the cybersecurity report recently this year, and not bearing in mind the NHS and the Petra very recently, we could add to this on a daily basis the numbers that are increasing with all the threats, and it is important that we recognise that overall 46% of organisations out there have had some description that they've noticed or identified. Doesn't mean to say they haven't been accessed and they haven't recognised it. Things can take place when you're not even aware of it, and that's the sneaky bit, and that's the bit we have to be very, very much aware of. So behavioural tracking and network tracking of understanding who's going where and what they're looking at, whether it's an internal or whether it's an external who's got access to your systems. It is important and imperative that you understand that these are ones that have been recognised and identified, and there's lots that probably haven't been, which is a terrible thought, but we have to be realistic. One of our major security advisors, which is GCHQ down in Cheltenham, obviously you've probably seen the building, you hear quite a bit about it, and they recognise the fact that guidance of how we can try and prevent, simple things to try and prevent these cyber attacks. So just give you a chance to read that, and obviously, as we mentioned before, it's not the fact that they're trying to just access your data. It could be intellectual property, and clearly that could be something that's quite sensitive to you. It could be brand new innovation that's going to make your business the world leader. It could be information that's relevant to security as regards personnel, and information that could be detrimental to anybody, maybe personal details that you wouldn't want anyone else to be aware of. And the last bit there, the basic information risk management can stop 80% of cyber attacks seen today, but experience suggests that few organisations get it right. So as much as we do try, we have to be mindful of the three areas of the cyber risks of internal, external access, people wanting to commit problems with their systems, try and nick data, and where we can prevent it. This was issued in spring 2013. It's as relevant then today as it was then, and it's an important thing from our side is that with things like the ISO 27001 or 27002 as it's now moved into a new iteration, these are simple things that lock you down your machine before you walk away, and just simple tactics about security, passwords, and how often they're changed, and managing users, and just again, very much common sense as the first line of defence. Everybody in the organisation, regardless of who that person is, if they've got access to BYOD, bring your own device, or fixed PCs or corporate devices, then we need to make them understand that everyone is a security officer trying to prevent any of these risks. Okay, so that sort of covers off a little bit around the high level, as I say, informational view of cybersecurity, and clearly one size doesn't fit all, so we have to bear in mind that your own business and the size of your business and the elements of your business could be areas that we need to just review, and as such, one size doesn't fit all, it is case by case. So in the first part of the business, the first part of the presentation, see where it fits around your business, have a chat with your account manager. Moving on to the second big hitter this morning, and that's security compliance for the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, coming in May 2018. We can't emphasise enough that this is probably the biggest security shake-up that we've ever seen. The industry, we've been going for some time, obviously way back to early 60s with the IBM machines, Windows 95 with Mr. Gates, and then moving into the new technology of the cloud and the BYOD. We've got a situation where we need to understand where that data is, who's got it, and what impact that could have if that information gets leaked. So we're now trying to build security of data by design, making sure that we understand where my data is, how my data is held, and how I can ensure that I have access to every bit of information on every individual and organisation that I've got on my systems across wherever it may be, whether it's on the cloud, whether it's in my premises, or whether it's on someone else's pen USB that it shouldn't be, or whether it's in someone's iCloud. We need to understand and recognise that these are major threats to us. GDPR, Brexit won't really matter, I'm afraid. We are going to be involved regardless. We are a part of the signing up to any of this because we have to. If we want to do business with these guys, it's important that we understand what it is we're trying to achieve. And if we're supplying goods to any EU organisation and we're holding data, whether it's email, we need to understand why have we got that data? Is that data relevant? Is it important to me as a business? Do I actually need that? More importantly, if I need to get rid of that data for the person's request, do I know where that data is? Do I know if I've eliminated and erased all of it? So data subject, that's a person obviously we're dealing with. It could be a business as well, it could be an organisation. And then we need to recognise what it is that we're actually holding on them. So our CRMs, where we would have easily said, oh, you've got 2 children, the age is this and the age is that, and the birthday is this and the birthday is that. It's all very nice and very lovely. Do we actually need it? Is it going to be relevant? And how can we clear it off if that person wants to be removed? It's a very, very, very complicated state of affairs, and the consequences of not getting it right are enormous. So management of the data. This might seem quite simple, but it isn't, I'm afraid. It's when the word mandatory starts to come into most of this, where it is a mandatory data inventory of record keeping of all processing of European personnel data. It's mandatory breach notification to regulators and individuals of whose information has been compromised. The right to be forgotten allows the individuals to request their personal data to be erased. That's every piece of information on them. Routine privacy impact assessments to prove that you have actually got the ability to test your systems, that they are workable and they are fit for purpose. And some of the organisations, well, most of them, will end up having to have a data protection officer in addition to potentially a security officer, which we spoke about, where people have now recognised the need for maybe a dedicated security person. We're definitely going to have a data protection officer, DPO, to go with your GDPR, probably too many acronyms. So with all these mandatory requirements, what we have to be fully mindful of is the fact that should we have a breach, we have to report that breach within 72 hours. Now, I don't know of any IT department presently that would be able to give me information on all of my data that they have on me, everything they've ever dealt with me for the last how many years, and find out where it is within 72 hours. If that data breach is quite substantial, it could be lots of other persons or organisations, that could be a minefield of trying to get that information back. So unfortunately, we're in a situation where the 72 hours is not a long window, it's a very short window in order for us to make sure that we are able to get that across to our regulators and make sure that we prove it. Failing to do so, we are in a situation where we have the potential of up to 20 million euros fine or 4% of annual turnover. The first ones that get caught with any breaches, I can imagine it's going to be quite severe, and they're probably going to take that to the limit. And that, as such, we're in a situation where it is important that we recognise and understand that this isn't something that we just shove into the carpet. This is something that we're going to have to recognise and deal with well in advance of the May deadline. We'll probably find that by the turn of the year, if we haven't got anything in place, it's going to prove for a lot of organisations to be very, very tricky indeed to get up to speed to where we need to be. So it is important that we understand and recognise that this is a serious new change in legislation, and it's going to have serious consequences. So how does all this fit together with the two big hitters? We've got the cybersecurity and we've got the GDPR. Now, we've got enough on our plates as a business to try and make it all ends meet anyway, and we need to try and make sure that we stay viable, we stay competitive, and we're making margin and stay in a profitable state. But then we have all these other impacts coming onto the business, and we have very little choice now, I'm afraid. But if we get this wrong, the consequences can be extremely severe. Not only from the point of view of embarrassment if you are hit by cyber threats and cyber breaches, but also the fact that if you do get caught with a data breach with the GDPR, that equally will be devastating to businesses. So it's a double whammy, as I say. These are two very big heavyweights that we need to address, ideally sooner rather than later. So what we need to try and understand from our side is obviously how we can make your business safe and secure by checking that the people understand what they need to do, your processes, policies, and how your business is set up as regards your access to internet and who has the rights to go across different parts of the business and has access to data in areas that may or may not have or should have or shouldn't have. And make sure that the endpoints, the actual BYOD and corporate devices equally, that they're fully managed. How do we know that endpoint hasn't been antivirus updated, and when they send their email back to you, it's got a threat inside, and before you realise, that's penetrated the system, and you've got Petra or WannaCry on your system, and you're being locked down because they've put an encryption across your data. We need to understand that the threats are there all day, every day, 24/7, and we have to be mindful that everyone is a security officer, not just the IT department. So people, process and endpoints is a mantra, I think, that we try to make sure that we bring home to everyone. So just referring back to how we were before when your IT environment, and it is important to understand, as I say, that this is just the tip of the iceberg. You'll have other areas where it could be very important to your business, like the cloud apps or shopping carts. You may have e-commerce, e-websites, and areas where you're exposing certain parts of the business to the public which shouldn't necessarily be exposed. There can be ways of managing that and ensuring that they only get to have access and see where they need to be, and not potentially giving a hole into your network. So obviously from your side, that's what you think you may have. This is probably where we've started, as I mentioned, with and there's nothing wrong in this. It's a great start to have a firewall and antivirus and checking your emails and do what you can as a level. But clearly what we have to recognise and understand is viruses, malware, denial of service. All of these areas are relevant and important to us, that we understand that the threats that are coming through are every day from everywhere, and it's important that we understand that we have to address every single one where we can. You may not have all of these available to you, but clearly when you've got your firewall and your email protection with your antivirus, that's probably a good base start, but we need to understand a little bit more and recognise what it is you're trying to achieve. So, your IT strategy. How can our guys, our security experts, together with your account managers, look after you and try and help you protect your business in a way that we'll do all we can to ensure that we keep your business safe and protected at all times as best we possibly can. Protect, detect and respond is our mantra, the CPIO watered down mantra. What will this do? Obviously, we need to protect you with the firewall to stop all the access coming through from externals, antivirus, anti-malware, threat detection, network penetration testing to make sure there aren't any network leaks or areas of ports that are open that people can come in, that they know that these areas are vulnerable and therefore have access directly onto your system. Applications that you're using could also have holes in them, software applications, like we've seen your Windows updates. It's an application, as is any other application. They have vulnerabilities. We need to understand if there are any in the applications that you've got. And analysing user and attacker behaviour analytics, making sure that we understand that if a person has access to an area that they should have access to, usually you'll, oh crikey, I'm going to go, can't go there, that's not for me. But if they can't continue to revisit, and you can see a bit of a trend and a pattern, that may be a person that's looking to probably take something to their advantage, and it could be a security risk. We need to understand and recognise those threats. Endpoints, as we mentioned, these are areas where we literally are in a situation where making sure that the endpoints, the BYOD that we spoke about, they are fully protected and fully patched, and making sure that they are as robust and solid as we possibly can. And the last two are probably a couple of the most important ones, together with everything else above. Data leakage protection, DLP, where we need to try and stop anyone from taking your data who should not be taking your data, whether they can print it off, screen print it, do what they need to do, but anything that's relevant that could be detrimental to your business in someone else's hands, we need to understand that. So indexing of data, linking where all the information is, this is a part of the GDPR, so we can trace and track wherever we've got individuals stored and all their information on that individual or their business, and quite simply, once we've indexed it, we have the right to erasure. If they want to take everything off our system, we need to show and prove that we can take everything off our system. So data leakage and data protection are two of the most important areas of our business, and it is important that we recognise all of the above are just elements, and that isn't everything, trust me, that we need to understand and how we can add some further layers of security to your organisation. Just to recap, they are two big heavyweights. They are two of the most important parts of our industry. To recognise that we need to get you to deliver your apps to your users, for them to deliver the business, to make sure that your business is performing. From our side, we need to understand that we have to prevent all those baddies from trying to get access to your data to bring you down and prevent you from making profit and running your businesses as you'd expect to do so. So from there, guys, I'm hoping that we'll get a few questions out of this. As I say, our mantra, protect, detect and respond, is very much an important part of our business. We understand to get a few questions raised by you to see how, if you've got any queries about vulnerabilities or areas where your business that you want to be dead sure that we, as best we can, that you're safe and secure. It is down to arranging a time for us to either have a conversation or a site visit, in order for us to come and have a quick chat with you, to do a quick overview, and then we can put an action plan together should we find something that we need to do so. Alright, so thank you for your time. We're just about bang on time, which is about 40 minutes, so any questions, I'll take those shortly, but otherwise thank you very much for your time and appreciate it. Please get in touch with your account managers who will arrange a follow-up call, and either we can have a visit or we can do whatever is required from your side to hopefully plug in any of those gaps. Once again, many thanks indeed for your time.